Hi, I'm Kyle. Thank you for checking in on my bicycle displayed here at Deschutes Tasting Room in downtown Roanoke, Virginia. What you see is an example of early suspension mountain bike design, and this one has a pretty interesting story.
Displayed before you is a 1997 Rocky Mountain Speed featuring shock absorbers on both the front and rear wheels. The frame is aluminum, 8 speeds rear, 3 up front. It's a limited edition series, this one being number 174 of a total 250 made. So limited it never even appeared in a Rocky Mountain catalog in this colorway. It has 3 inches of front shock travel and 5 inches of coil sprung travel out back. It was ridden and enjoyed throughout Virginia's Blue Ridge back in the day. You may be familiar with Rocky Mountain Bicycles, now a well-known high-end brand. The Western Canadian company was founded in 1981, just 5 short years after the mountain bike, then known as clunkers or ballooners, emerged from the San Francisco Bay Area just down the coast from Rocky's home in British Columbia. I was a sales rep for the company in 1991, before any dealer was established on the East Coast and very few nationwide as the small company began to work their way into the States. For the first 10 plus years, mountain bikes had no shock absorption mechanisms except for 2-inch wide knobby tires, rubber grips, and whatever bump reduction could be coaxed out of rigid frames made of steel, aluminum, and titanium. Front suspension bikes outfitted with RockShox Mag 21 forks debuted in the 1992 Rocky Mountain catalog. There was some initial resistance to RockShox early due to additional weight concerns, but most everyone soon realized that 1 extra pound of heft was well worth hauling when the trail turned rough. The 90s were a time of amazing creativity and rapid technology development as mountain bike sales boomed. Backyard designers cranked out all manner of unique CNC machined aluminum parts and concept bikes. While suspension forks became routine, shock absorption on the back wheel evolved with wildly varying concepts and results. One problem to be dealt with was pedaling force, which caused the suspension to bounce up and down, robbing power along with other unpleasant side effects. Before 1994, rear suspension bicycles were a mushy, bouncy bunch that pedaled poorly. Then along came John Castellano, a rocket engineer and mountain bike enthusiast. He figured out that where the rear swing arm attached with the main frame had everything to do with how the suspension would perform, especially while pedaling. He selected a sweet spot hinge point located above and in front of the bottom bracket, with the cranks placed on the rear moving frame part or rear triangle. Thus was born the sweet spot, unified rear triangle design or URT, that enjoyed a wildly successful run for a couple of years anyway. Mr. Castellano's sweet spot provided the most suspension action while seated and then stiffened significantly when standing. This characteristic was intended since stand-up pedaling places more downward force and therefore more bouncing. Essentially, the concept created dual personalities, active while seated, stiff while standing. It worked well enough that 5 manufacturers, Breezer, WTB, Ibis, Schwinn, and Rocky Mountain, ponied up license fees for this design. Other URT manufacturers, namely Trek and Klein, evaded license fees and patent violations by moving pivots upward or downward from that magical sweet spot. The sweet spot URT Revolution began with a bang and then flamed out. While the URT design did solve some mountain bike suspension woes, it created others. The stiffening while standing effect also meant you lost suspension going downhill, which is done mostly standing up. While braking downhill, even worse, brake jack or stink bugging. The rear end would bow up and rise in the travel, just when you need the opposite, digging in down low, deep in the stroke, soaking up earthly irregularities. By 1999, nearly all URT bikes were discontinued, dumping a hugely popular and somewhat functional design unceremoniously into the dustbin of history. But wait, does the Lost and Lonely URT yet live? For the answer, you need to go no further than your neighborhood Walmart bicycle department. There, you'll find cheap full suspension bikes, and they all feature the URT. Why? The problems John Castellano solved also provided for simple and cheap manufacturing. And while we dissuade you from taking department store suspension bicycles anywhere near a trail for fear of your safety, the URT design lives on in a different world.
So thank you, John Castellano and Rocky Mountain Bicycles, for the bikes and the adventures. I'll see you out on the trail.